Hi guys, it's Jordan from P&P Campers. I'm just going to be doing a handover video on this Bessecarr E412. So it's a 63 plate, so that's late 2013, and we're based on the Fiat Ducato chassis. So over on the left hand side under the bonnet, we've got your washer fluid reservoir, power steering fluid, engine coolant and brake fluid up just here. We've then got your engine oil filling point from this point here, and your engine oil dipstick is the little red one at the front. You've got a couple of information sheets on here. So you've got a Fiat 249 paint colour, which is your white paint colour throughout the entire vehicle. So any touch-up paint or anything like that is Fiat 249. Your air conditioning information, the one that's sort of been stamped, if you like, is the one that your aircon relates to. So it's just telling you how many grams of gas is supposed to be put in, basically. We've then got your chassis plate just here. There will more than likely be another chassis plate around the vehicle somewhere after it was converted, basically. So just keep your eye out for that if you need to see it. And then you've got your air filter sits inside this box just down here. And the only other thing to point out under the bonnet of these ones is that because the engine battery sits under the floor in the cab, you've actually got a couple of points in here. So under this little cover is your positive terminal for the engine battery, and your negative terminal is this little prong just here on the outside here. So if you wanted to jump start the van, basically, you've got positive there, negative here, and that will jump start the van. So that is about it for under the bonnet, really. Not much else I can show you there. Inside the passenger door, we've got your bonnet release handle just here, and your factory fitted jack and wheel brace kit just down here underneath the passenger seat. In this little cover just here, we've got your diesel filling point, so you will need your ignition key in order to open up that diesel point. And then we'll be sort of working our way around to the back of the van. So along the top of the van on the near side here, we've got your wind out awning or sun canopy, as some people might call them. This is a Fiamma F45S awning. So basically it will just wind all the way out like that, and then give you a load of space underneath it. This locker just here is a really important one because there's a good amount of storage that you can get to from inside, but you've also got this massive amount of store or access here to the leisure battery. So if you ever needed any access to that, then that is where that is there, and you've got all your factory carpets there as well. So the other bits on the near side just here are the fridge vents, so you can see those just there. If you've got the fridge lit up on gas, which I do at the moment, you can sometimes feel a little bit of warm air coming out through the top right hand side of this vent. You may or may not feel it, doesn't really matter either way. But yeah, you've got an awning light just up there, so the idea being that you can have the awning light on with the awning wound out and you'll be able to see what's going on underneath. The actual habitation door itself has quite a clever little sort of locking system. Well, it's not a lock, but a steady system. So as you push it open, you can't really see it on the video, but when you get to about here, it kind of goes really stiff like that. So it doesn't just pull back on itself really easily, so that it won't flap around in the wind, basically. Your electric step comes out with this little switch just here, as you can see, and we've got switches in here for various lights. So at the back of the van, we have got your twin reversing camera, obviously your kitchen window there, and a tow bar there at the back. Not much else to show you at the back of the van, really. On the off side, we've got the toilet cassette locker, which is the first one we get to. So you have got a separate flush system in here. So essentially, you've got your flush fluid in the top reservoir just here. Okay, so that is your pre-mixed pink fluid that goes in there. And the gauge for that is this little thing just here on the right. So you can see we've got about half the amount of water in there. Try not to go too high up on that. Anywhere around here is probably about right. But yeah, that'll last you a little while. And then the actual toilet cassette itself comes out by lifting up the little green tab at the bottom. You'll then be able to take the cassette all the way out. From there, all you need to know is that you've got the actual draining point is here at the front. So twist it open and drain from here. And when you're physically draining it out, you need to hold this little button here down at the back, and that will just basically release a little bit of pressure whilst it's coming out from here. Once you've drained it out, a little bit of blue fluid goes back inside here. Give it a little swish around and then push it all the way back in until you hear that little click. And that's it. Really, really easy. Down below here, we've got your wastewater drain off point. So that is literally a case of twist it 90 degrees and all the water will start draining out from there. Very, very easy. Your electric hookup point is this one just here. And I'm actually just going to plug this in now so that you can see that working. So push that in like that, make sure it's nice and snug, and then make sure that you fold that bit over as well. Okay, so that is your electric hookup plugged in. Now the hookup will basically just allow you to use any of your mains powered appliances and any 3-pin sockets as well. So having that plugged in is really handy. Next locker is the gas locker. So this is your standard sort of 2 6-kilo propane bottle gas locker. At the moment, we always just give away 1 bottle of the vans, but you have got what looks like a brand new pigtail hose. Let's have a look for the date on that. 2024 date on that one. So all you need to know is that you turn the gas bottle on by going anti-clockwise, like so, and turn it off by going all the way down clockwise, like that. You may find that if you've just been driving the vehicle and you go to turn the gas on, every now and again you might find that the gas won't come through. Now that's because you've got this little green button down here, which is what's called a crash sensor. So if it thinks that you've been in a crash, it should isolate the gas from here. Now you should also just bear in mind that you should have the gas turned off before you start driving every time anyway, so you shouldn't have to worry about this. But when you go to turn the gas bottle on, it's always good practice to just hold the little purge button down for a few seconds, just to allow that crash sensor to sort of re-purge itself. And it does actually tell you how to do that there. All right, so just sort of pointing out that to you. Below that, we have got your boiler vent. So if you've got the boiler lit up, you should feel warm air coming out through this area just here. And then the last thing is your freshwater filling point just here. So that's locked up at the moment because it's just spinning around. So if I grab the key out of my pocket, you'll see that what will happen is when I unlock it, basically I'll put the key in and twist it whichever way it will go. Take the key back out, and now when I twist the cap, it will come out in my hand. So that's unlocked. To lock it back up, put it in and twist it till it stops, like I've just done there. Key back in, twist and take out, and now it just spins. It will not come out in my hand, it just spins around. So that's now locked. Okay, so I'll jump in the cab and show you what we've got going on in here now as well. Right, so you've got an unbelievably low mileage on this van, 16,700 miles. So bearing in mind that this van is now 12 years old, that is, well, it's an unbelievable mileage. It's just over 1,000 miles a year. So in the actual cab itself, we have got over on the door, we can lock and unlock the cab from this little button just here. We've got your electric windows from these ones here, and your electric adjusting mirrors from that one at the front. You've got your headlamp adjustments from here and your mode settings there, so that's all to do with the screen up here. You've got the steering wheel controls on here, so you can connect up your phone to this center console, I believe, because you can sort of answer and decline phone calls, I think, on here, because it is the more modern one. You've got your indicators, on the left-hand stalk just here with your lights, and your washers and wipers on the right-hand side. You've also got the optional cruise control option, so you can turn that on and off from there, and then change the speed and resume from the button on the left. You've got the 6-speed manual gearbox, so lift up on the back here, push over and up to the top left-hand side to engage reverse. And to be honest, the center console side of it, I very rarely explain because it's just so self-explanatory. Air conditioning is from this little switch here, is the only button I tend to explain. You can lock and unlock the cab from these buttons here as well, and you've got your hazard lights there. The reversing camera should come up on this little screen here. All right, so it is just a small screen basically, instead of a rear view mirror. And you have got the full cab blinds in here as well. So essentially, to use these, you have to be really delicate with them, but squeeze these two bits in together, and that will then allow you to pull the actual blind all the way out. Then you just push it all the way across and let it meet up with its magnetic strip over there, and that's now completely blacked out. Same goes for the center one. So the only difference is that they meet in the middle with the magnet, so that's how they connect in the middle. But yeah, there we go. Right, so that's about it for the cab really. Both these front seats do swivel round, so you've got these little handles just here. When you put on the handle like that, you will then be allowed to swivel the seat around. Okay. So, first thing I'm going to show you in the back of the van, just whilst I'm here and I don't forget. This hatch in the floor is basically just access to the fresh tank. And the reason that that's important to know is because you've got a little red bung inside the lid of the fresh tank. So that little red bung is the actual drain off point for the fresh water. Okay, so if you want to drain out the fresh tank, you've physically got to reach your hand in there and pull the bung out to drain out all of the water. Now the plus side to that, although it's a little bit of a faff to sort of get down into it, not that it's difficult, the plus side to having that as opposed to an external drain off point is that those ones there will drain out every singular last bit of water. So every little grain of sand or whatever, you know, dirt or whatever that might get in there will be drained completely out. And you can physically get your hand in there and do whatever you need to do. So it is quite handy actually to have that as opposed to your standard external one. That pushes in nice and solid like that. And because it's sort of directly to the outside of the van, they have got a nice little rubber seal around it, so it's not going to let any air come back through. So what I will do is I'll explain to you the control panel, which is this up here, first, and then I'll sort of carry on through and show you through the appliances. So yeah, the control panel is very, very simple. You've literally got a power button just here, which when you press, it will give you a few little lights all over the place. So if you have got the water pump turned on, the water pump light will come on, which it is. So that's off and that's on. If your hookup is plugged in, you'll get this little light here come on telling you that it's working. Depending on which battery that you have selected to power the back of the van, so all of your lights and 12-volt stuff, depending on which battery you have selected, it will tell you on here. So at the moment, we've got a light here at the back of the van, which tells us that the leisure battery is the battery that's powering the back of the van, which is exactly what we want to happen. If we use the vehicle battery to power the back of the van, you can probably imagine it's going to drain the battery out and you won't be able to start the van up. So really important that you have the leisure battery selected, which we do. This light at the top here is telling us that the awning light is on. Okay, so if we have a little look out there, you can see that yes, the awning light is on. We can turn that off by this little switch just here that says awning light, as you can see. So just to show you, whilst I'm talking about the whole leisure battery, vehicle battery thing, when I press over on the left-hand side at leisure battery, it's telling us that we're at absolutely maximum power for that, and that's because the hookup's plugged in and is charging it. If I press vehicle battery, it now switches over to a little amber light at the front, and it's now charging up the vehicle battery. The issue with it is if you aren't hooked up on the mains, then basically what happens is the vehicle battery starts powering the back of the van and it ends up draining itself out. In this particular case, because I've got the hookup plugged in, it doesn't really matter too much because the hookup is now also charging the vehicle battery. As well as using it to power the back of the van, it's actually charging it as well. So in that case, you know, if your engine battery is a bit flat and you have got access to a hookup cable being plugged in, then it's fine. You can select vehicle battery and the hookup will start charging the vehicle battery. But for the most part, you're going to want to be on leisure, allowing the leisure battery to power the van, which is actually what it's there for anyway. Okay, so the other two switches here, view levels. So when I press on that, it shows us both battery voltages and both tank levels as well. So you've got half a tank of fresh water there and 0% in our wastewater tank. Cabin lights. So that's literally just a main lights isolator, basically. The one that says cabin lights there. And that's it. That is the control panel. Very, very easy. So next door to that is our Truma heating and hot water system. So when I turn this on, you'll see we get a little green light come on just there. It tells us on the screen a couple of things. It tells us the heating temperature and all that sort of stuff, but we'll get into that in a second. So it tells us on the screen the room temperature is 20 and we've got it set to 30. So when we turn this on, heating is on at 30 degrees, so the heating should spring to life. When I turn this switch on just here, it's giving us the option of what energy to use for the heater. So at the moment we've got gas powered selected. So when I press on that, it just basically uses the gas. Okay. If I wanted to change that so that it was only using the mains, for example, then I can just select one of these top two here. So 230 volt at 4 amps or 230 volt at 8 amps. Okay. So they're the two options for the mains. We've also got below where it says gas powered, we've got 230 volt and gas, or 230 volt and gas at different voltages, so, or ampage, sorry. So we've got the option basically of electric only, gas only, or both at the same time. Okay. So at the moment, our heating will come on when we've got that little switch there turned on. Okay. We've then also got this switch just here, which is our water heating. So we've got 0 degrees or 60, and we just press go, basically. Okay, so literally, as soon as you've turned that water heating switch on and selected 60 degrees, it will just do its own thing. It will just do it for you, and you leave it alone. Back to 0, we'll turn it off. And then we can select the temperature there, obviously, for the heating. Really, really simple. And there we go. So it does not get any easier than that, I don't think. So basically, turn it off like so. It will flash at you for a few seconds just to allow you to, well, basically just telling you that it's cooling itself down. But yeah, so heating, energy selector, hot water. Easy as that. So, rest of the van is, you know, a few more appliances and bits and pieces. So, right, in the respect of the boiler, now I'm going to show you something down here, which I should have been better prepared for and lifted up before the video started, but we'll move on. So, this is the actual boiler itself. Okay, the sort of grey unit just here is the boiler. Now, basically, this is the same type of boiler as has been used for a long time. Okay, there's nothing particularly special about it. It's just a Truma Combi boiler. The only thing that you need to know about it, really, obviously, you know, there'll be books for all this. You can have a good look through it and sort of read up about it if you want to. But I assure you it's all quite boring. So down here is the only thing that you need to know about, realistically. You've got a little yellow tab. This yellow tab is the boiler drain off point, and essentially you need to drain the boiler out to winterize the van. So if you're going to leave the van over winter and you're not going to use it, you have to winterize it. If you don't, you know, lift this drain upright and drain all the water out from inside the boiler, what will happen is, or what might happen is, that the boiler will be full of water, about 10 litres, and as that water freezes, it will expand and end up cracking and breaking every single joint inside the boiler. So really important to drain the boiler's water out before winter. If you're going to be using the van over winter, obviously don't worry about doing that because you'll be keeping the van warm anyway. But if you're going to be leaving the van locked up for a little while over winter, it's really important to do that. So to drain it out, you literally just lift the tab upright so it's facing us right now, and then all the water from inside the boiler will drain out. Otherwise, leave it down flat like it is now, and that will just retain every bit of water that runs to it. To the left of that, we've got your water pump and water filter. Okay, so the water does run through the filter before it goes to all the taps. And just whilst we're here as well, over the back there is your battery charger. So when your hookup's plugged in, that little grey unit at the back there is the thing that's charging up the battery. So, just drop this back down again without making a racket. So yeah, the reason that's so important to know is that, you know, obviously, as I just said, you need to make sure that you drain it out before winter. But it's also really important to know that you have to make sure that the boiler is actually full of water before you start trying to, you know, use the hot water, basically. So doing that just is like a fail-safe. I mean, obviously, because it's a manual drain-off point, you'll know if you have opened it up or closed it. But it is just good practice to just lift that cushion up and just have a quick look down. It takes 2 seconds. Lift the cushion up and have a look. Make sure it's down flat. And then you can move on to the next step that I'm going to show you now. So, first things first. We know that we've got water in the fresh tank. So I'm going to press the view levels button. Fresh water, half a tank. So straight away, I know I've got water in the tank. I can then lift this up. Have a brief look down there. Yes, it's laying down flat. I can see that. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the next thing. So, to actually make sure that the boiler's full of water, the only way to do it is to actually draw the water through the tap. Now, basically, the boiler is the first in line for the hot side of the taps. So, in other words, the water has to run through the boiler before it gets to the tap. So, if the boiler isn't full up, you will not get water coming through to any of the taps because it's filling up the boiler first and then pumping around. So to double check that the boiler is definitely full, I'm just going to draw the water through the tap. I'll start on the cold side. So we've got good pressure there, pumps come on, not coughing and spluttering going everywhere. And then I'll do the same on the hot. Same again, no, air coughing out all over the place and making a mess. When I turn the tap off, the pump should run on for a few seconds and then turn itself off. And there you go. So the pump's just run on for a few seconds, turn itself off, which is basically just it getting back up to pressure. So that is the perfect sort of example. All right, so that is literally showing us that the boiler is completely full because it's not coughing and sending out any air. Where it's filling the boiler up, so it's full up, and then when I turn the tap off, the pump turns itself off. So that now means that the boiler is full up to the brim and we're up to pressure, so we can then go ahead and use the boiler however we want to. Okay, so it really is as easy as that. It takes 2 seconds just to sort of fail safe basically for the boiler. I mean, if you try and light the boiler up on the main, to get the water hot when it's empty, it's basically the same as plugging in an empty kettle and turning it on. So just doing that, it takes seconds. Even if you do it every single time you get in the van, it doesn't take long, and it just proves to you that everything's good to use. So that's the water system. Quite boring, but it's important to know. Now you've got storage down here, absolutely loads of storage in these lockers. And that one there as well. So the cooker, you have got, because this is a British-made vehicle, they do tend to give you more options for this. So you have got the option of the mains ring up here. So you've got this little dial here, which basically will just start heating up that mains ring as long as the hookup's plugged in. Otherwise, you have got the option of the gas burners. The grill and the oven are both gas as well. So you've got the grill switch just here, and the oven one to the right. Make sure that your grill's open when you're using it. That's it really. Not much else to explain on that one. The only thing I would say is that it's really important to allow the top burners to cool down before you put the glass lid back down. Only really because, it's only not that I had that on for a few seconds, so I'm still going to be okay to put that down. I'm talking more so if you've been, cooking on it for 20 minutes or something like that. When it's all really, really hot around here, just allow it to cool down before you put the glass lid down. I mean, they are designed to get warm, but in my experience, it's not pretty when they explode, which is what they do. So just make sure that you allow it to cool down before putting the lid down. Not the end of the world if it does break, because I think we can still get hold of these, but yeah, just not pretty is the only thing I would say. Right, loads of storage up here as well, but not much else for me to explain. Okay, so the bathroom. Now, I really like this bathroom because I think it's really well laid out. It's your standard, well, I would say it's your standard. It's not really standard. You've got a really massive shower cubicle here. But I like the fact that it's all plastic lined, so you've got no chance of anything getting, rotted and damp. So another thing, just in case you didn't realise, the reason you've got 2 drains is so that if you're parked up on somewhere wonky, it will still drain out from either side, just in case you wondered why there was 2. Sink is in this little funny fold down bit here with its own little drain off point, so just hot and cold tap for that one. Hot and cold tap for the shower. Only difference is that you've got a little handle that you need to squeeze to actually allow the water to come out. The toilet is normally the only part that I actually explain, because it's you might not have used a Thetford toilet before. Essentially, press the little blue button here to pump the flush fluid around, which, by the way, that is like the perfect colour for flush fluid, so like a light pink. And then pull the handle towards you to drain it into the cassette. And that's it. Make sure that you push the flap back over. If you don't put the flap back, then you won't be able to take the cassette out from outside because it'll be locked in position. But yeah, that's about it for the bathroom. The rest of it's all pretty self-explanatory, really. You've got the doors that come across to stop all of this from getting soaking wet, and you've got a skylight above your head. So yeah, very, very easy. So you've got a microwave up here. This is a mains powered appliance, so this will not work unless the hookup is plugged in. And the isolator, or the plug for it, is up the top just there. Down below here we have got, well, where Bessecarr have assumed that you're going to have a TV, basically. The reason I say that, not only is there a TV bracket there, but there is all of your points for that there. So you've got your TV aerial sockets at the top there, 12 volt point and 2 main sockets. So realistically, this is where they want you to plug your telly into. Down below this, we've got the fridge. So this is a Dometic 3-way fridge. You can probably imagine what I mean by 3-way fridge. Just means it works 3 different ways. But you have also got the option here of the A button. So when I press A, you'll notice that it switches over from gas to mains. So we've got mains electric, gas, and 12 volt. They are the 3 options that we've got. So basically, the A option is going to choose, or should choose, automatically the most efficient way of getting the fridge cold, which realistically is in the order that they're in. So mains electric is generally the best, gas, and 12 volt. So you can, if you want to, leave it on A and it should just do all of this for you. But I do like to explain how to do it manually as well, just in case that stops working for whatever reason. So basically, these fridges, the only 2 ways to actually get the fridge cold from warm is mains or gas. These are the only 2 that will actually get the fridge cold. Okay, and you have to remember that every time you get in the van, you're getting the fridge cold again from warm. With a household fridge, it's cold all the time. You just leave it on. Whereas with these ones, you don't just leave them on. When you're not using the fridge, when you're not using the van for a week, you're not going to leave the fridge on for a week. That would just be daft. You would just turn it off and then reuse it when you want to use it again. So you have to remember, or bear in mind, that it's not going to be half an hour until it gets cold. It's going to be an hour or 2 or 3, sometimes even 3 hours before the fridge gets cold. That being said, the only 2 ways to do it are on the mains or the gas. The 12 volt option here is for keeping the fridge cold whilst you're driving. Now, basically what you've got is what you call a split charge relay. So when the engine's running, the alternator charges the engine battery. But with motorhomes, or most motorhomes, you've got your split charger as well, which basically sends some power from the engine to the leisure side of the vehicle as well, and to the fridge. So you'll notice that when I press on this one here, straight away gives us a fault code and starts flashing. So the reason for that is we haven't got the engine running, and at the moment it's not got the power going to it because of that. So as soon as the engine is started up and you select the 12 volt, it will switch over for you and it will start keeping the fridge cold. So pre-cool the fridge before you leave, select 12 volt just for when you're driving, and then select one of these two again when you're parked up at your campsite or wherever you're going. So that is the way that you need to use the fridge. You've also got a temperature selector on the right. Okay, so you can adjust that as and when you need to. So I'll turn that off now, press and hold, and as long as there's no light on the front, it's off. So the last thing to show you really is going to be in here, I think. So if I just have a little look, make sure there's nothing obvious that I need to point out. I'll tidy this up in a minute. Right, so this is obviously just a massive amount of storage in here. Huge wardrobe. Full-size standalone tables in here as well. All right, just so that you know where that is. Down at the bottom here, we have got... don't need to know what's under there, really. A load of paperwork for the vehicle in this brown folder. And your gas isolator points just here. So it does tell you on this little diagram here which one does what. But basically just twist it 90 degrees to isolate the gas. It's honestly as simple as that. And the only reason that you would ever do that, by the way, is if you think you've got an issue with a specific appliance. Otherwise, don't worry about it. You don't have to turn them off every time. Turning the gas off from the locker outside is the best way to turn the gas off. If you just turn these off here, all you're doing is isolating the appliances from the gas. All of the pipes elsewhere are still going to be pumping through. So make sure that you turn the gas off before you start driving outside from the bottle. Just have a little look in here. Not much else to show you in there. And I think I've got one last thing to show you. So this little locker up here is really important. So this is your power supply unit. Okay, this is a Sargent power supply unit, which goes nicely along with your Sargent control panel up here. I believe it's a Sargent control panel anyway. Right, so basically the Sargent power supply unit, this is an EC450. Essentially, this is where all of the electronics go to and come from. So you've got your mains trip switches at the top. Okay, so if you've got if there's a specific appliance with an issue, you can have a little look up here and it will tell you what appliance does what. So let's just say, for example, we come to the van one day and we open this up and we see that this first one here is down. So MCB number 1. We have a little look up here. MCB number 1 does your 230 volt sockets. So that then might point towards you maybe plugging in something dodgy into one of the sockets, or overloading one of the sockets with a household appliance that you might not be able to use. So you can very quickly see what is going on. Okay, so that's the mains stuff up the top. On the left, don't worry about any of these. You can leave these all on. Okay, just ignore those. It's just isolators for the specific things that they say. You can also ignore this button just here that says system shutdown. Now basically this will just turn everything 12 volt related off. So this is only really for us when we're doing certain resets and stuff like that. So don't worry about that switch there. The last one down here is your 12 volt fuses basically. Now it will also tell you up here, 12 volt DC protection fuses. It tells you exactly what each one does, what size and what color it should be. So let's just say, for example, we have an issue where we can't get the lights to come on. I would then be looking up here on the 12 volt fuses for lights. Where are we? Front internal lights, for example. So that is fuse number 7. It should be 10 amp and it should be red. So fuse number 7, we can see there is this one. It's 10 and it's red. And then we could check that fuse. So, you know, unbelievably simple and easy to sort of work out. So obviously we can help with any issues, but the only reason I tend to explain about that is because if you're away on a holiday or it's a Sunday and we're not in or something like that, then, you know, you might be a bit stuck for somebody to help. So if you can just have a little look in there, and actually it's one of the best sort of bits of advice that I can give you is, as a motorhome owner, carry around some 12-volt fuses. Like, that is probably the most important thing for motorhome owners. 12-volt things do go wrong. It's not always that they've gone wrong even. Sometimes 12-volt fuses just break. It's, you know, I mean, realistically, there will be a reason for it, but every now and again, it might just surge power or something like that. And so, you know, even if there's not an issue with the appliance, sometimes the fuse will blow. And it's just a good idea to have some with you, just to literally pop one out, pop one in. So, yeah, there you go. The only other thing in this locker is this little unit at the back just here, which is your solar controller. You haven't got to do anything with that. It's just telling you what's going on. So it's just telling you how much voltage is in the battery there, coming in from the solar panel. And that's it. So I think I've covered everything. However, if there's something that you think I've missed out or anything you want going over again, just let us know. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks very much.